And temples are built at certain how does the water get to everyone? How did they set it up so the water flows everywhere?
Oh.
And, well, then I know the temples are there. How do they know where to place the temple?
Right. So the water temples have to be placed at just the right spot, because they place the water temple at the origin of the source of water. So it could be like a dam where the water comes off a river, or it could be a big canal where it divides, or it could be a spring. So wherever there's a big water division, there's a water temple. And all the farmers that benefit from that particular flow of water go to that water temple to give thanks for the water that they need to grow their crops. Now the water temples do something that's interesting. As well as providing a way to schedule to make sure that people get enough water, they can also use water to control pests. So the way that works is rice gets eaten by lots of things beside people. In other words, rice is popular food for insects and rats and birds and all kinds of things. However, if all the farmers over a large enough area plant at the same time, and then later on they harvest and flood their fields with water, then there's nothing left for the pests to eat. So if they can schedule it that way, if everybody cooperates and turns their fields into a giant lake, there's no more food for the pests, and the pest population will go down. So that's the job of the water temples. They get enough water for the growing season of the rice, and then by controlling the flow of the water, they can also control the pests.
And that was a bit of a problem with the Green Revolution, correct? If they were trying to grow rice year-round without letting fields take a break, then the pests increased, as well as having problems with the chemical fertilizers.
Problems with the Green Revolution that was completely unexpected was that it led to huge numbers of rice pests. The reason for that was the farmers were told to forget about the temples and just plant rice as fast as possible, boost the yields to get lots of rice. But pretty soon the pests began to track the rice growth. They could move from field to field to field and have babies. Pretty soon you have explosions of rice pests. So after a couple of years, the farmers said, wait a minute, why are we doing this, pouring on all these pesticides to kill the pests? We should go back to the old way, using the water temples, controlling the water, and bringing down the pest populations by removing their food. And that's what they did.
Great. So you answered the last question I was going to say. How did the temple system play into the success of rice farming? So basically, you were saying it's the organization of the water when it goes where via the temple system that helped. Well,
yeah. What the water temples do is give the farmers a way to get together and make decisions about controlling water. And by controlling water, they're controlling the basic ecology of their fields. And they learned really how important that is because of the Green Revolution. The Green Revolution said, let's forget about all that religious stuff, right? And just plant rice as fast as we can. Let's treat it like an economic enterprise. But the problem was, by losing control of the pulses of water, you also lost control of the whole ecology. So pretty soon, after just a few years, the yields, the harvest from the rice began to go down, until finally they call it, the yields from the harvest went down. Balinese now call that time the time of hunger. The Green Revolution led to the time of hunger because it disrupted the ecology of the rice fields. So the Balinese went back to the water temple system, which was the old way of growing rice that had worked for their ancestors for hundreds of years. In the years that I've worked here in Bali as an anthropologist, I've seen the Balinese face a crisis about their way of life. Can they sustain a way of life in the face of the modern world? Can they cope with environmental challenges? And the Green Revolution was a tremendous challenge here. They could have lost a productive system that was the way of life for their ancestors for centuries, creating one of the most beautiful civilizations, I think, on the planet. So that happened on this little bitty island, but I think it's also happening worldwide. In other words, we face a crisis about the transformation of our planet. Right? On the scale of the planet, we are converting traditional ways of life into a modern global ecology, and it's becoming apparent that a lot of that is not sustainable. So I think there's a lot to be learned from societies like Bali. That's why I'm here, to see what we can learn from these cultures about how to make it possible to live a beautiful life in some kind of harmony with the natural world.
Bingo. Great. Those are just some of the exact words I use in the show.
Huh.
I noticed on the island of Bali, they seem to not only celebrate every day, they have some kind of ritual or celebration every day, but sometimes to me it almost seems like every hour or every minute I see some kind of ritual being performed. How important is ritual and celebration in the life of the Balinese?
Ritual and celebration are important for the Balinese from the time a baby is born until they die. They are performing rituals, and the rituals have to do with maintaining your own sense of who you are, kind of growing yourself, they would say, turning yourself into the kind of person you want to be, and also connecting you with other human beings and with the natural world. So they think that it's easy to forget about those things, and what the rituals do, the creation of little flower offerings, is to help you focus and think about who you are, who you're becoming, and how you're connected to the world. So it just goes on and on. Every day there are rituals. Every third day there are important rituals that children make around the house, in each Balinese house. And it's the way they become Balinese. It's how you turn into a particular kind of person, a Balinese kind of person.
Well, all around the world we do have ritual and celebration. In every culture, no matter where I've been, I've seen human beings celebrating, performing rituals. Why do you think it's important for humans to have rituals and celebrations, or do you think it's important for everyone to have these?
Anthropologists have actually asked this question to find out, is ritual found in every human culture? And the answer is yes. It's one of the things that distinguishes us from the other animals that we share the planet with. We all have rituals. So there's something about performing a ritual that's part of what makes us human. It's fundamental to being human. And archaeologically, if we look back into the past, it looks like it began a long time ago. It was part of the process of becoming a human, to learn to perform rituals. So what's it about? Well, we think that rituals are when people sort of step back from the normal flow of life and think, who am I? What's important? What are we trying to do? It's a way of thinking about their connection to the world. And that's crucial. It's a way in which people can connect themselves to the world, and they can bring the arts into that. In other words, it doesn't have to just be a thought process. Usually it's a performance, right? Rituals involve performance. There's a film director named Richard Schechter, very famous American film director, who's been working for years with anthropologists looking at the relationship between theater and the rituals performed by native peoples. And what he's learned is the same sorts of things are going on. In other words, if you're going to perform a part in a play, then you have to step back and stop being yourself for a moment, right? In effect, you're kind of putting on a mask and you're performing someone else. So when you do a ritual, you're stopping and you're thinking, who am I? What's the relationship between who I am in this moment and what I want to be, right? How things ought to be. And that's just how we steer, That's how people steer themselves through their lives. It's how societies steer their way through life.
Since all societies or cultures seem to have celebrations, what do you think would happen to human beings if they didn't have a ritual or a celebration? I mean, including the drama, the art, the music that's all involved, and ritual. If we could hypothesize, that means project into the future and come up with a vision of what would happen. What would it be like what would happen to us if we didn't have rituals or celebrations? What do you think?
Well, I think it's possible to live without art. It's possible to live without music. It's possible to live alone. What I'm describing is a prison, right? You cut those things out of your life and you're living in a kind of prison. So these are the things that make life rich and important to us. And a future that doesn't have those things, that doesn't have rituals and celebrations and art, would be a very impoverished future.